You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Inside the Surrender, How Trump Forced an Elite Law Firm to Bend the Knee, based on an article by Matthew Rossa. Trump didn't just bully law firms, he'd exposed their price. The real power was never in the memo. Donald Trump did not need a legal victory to get what he wanted. He needed institutions willing to flinch. Paul Weiss had the money, prestige, and legal knowledge to resist an executive order the Times describes as widely seen as illegal. Instead, leadership chose a deal, and that choice became a signal to the rest of the corporate legal world. Pressure works when the target is already organized around fear, profit, and status. This is the core fact the story reveals. Trump held the coercive power. Paul Weiss's leaders held the decision. They were not trapped by ignorance. They were making a calculation. The firm sold its own myth. Paul Weiss likes to present itself as a serious institution with a public conscience. The reporting shows something uglier, an internal struggle between lawyers who still believed in civil rights work and corporate attorneys who treated the firm as a profit machine. Once private equity money and high-end corporate clientele became the center of gravity, the firm's values were already for sale. Trump simply tested the market. That matters because this was not a sudden collapse of principle. It was a long preparation for capitulation. A firm does not become this pliable overnight. It becomes pliable when its leadership has spent years teaching itself that moral commitments are optional and revenue is real. Fear plus money is not strategy. Brad Karp's surrender was not a tactical masterstroke. It was a panic move dressed up as prudence. The Times report says the firm knew Trump had no case. That means the problem was never legal merit. The problem was that the firm's leadership believed the White House could still impose costs through sheer intimidation, and they preferred to pay up rather than absorb the fight. Scott Barshay's role makes the moral bankruptcy clearer. A rainmaker pushing settlement and pushing out a trans attorney because he thought clients might be uncomfortable is not neutrality. It is elite compliance with reactionary pressure. Lex Korberg's reported $3.5 million non-disparagement deal is not some side note. It is the price tag attached to cowardice and trans-disposableness inside a supposedly prestigious institution. The misdirection is the point. Stories like this often get flattened into a debate about whether firms were pragmatic or idealistic. That framing is too soft. It turns deliberate surrender into managerial complexity. It also obscures who was actually doing the work of intimidation. Trump and his White House, using executive power as a bludgeon against institutions that should have understood the threat immediately. The worst misdirection is internal. The story can be read as a culture war inside a law firm, but that understates the politics. The corporate wing was not just defending the bottom line, it was aligning the firm with a broader elite instinct. Protect access, avoid conflict, erase anything that might unsettle clients, and call the result realism. That is how institutions teach themselves to submit before they are ordered to. Reputation is a material asset. The fallout matters because prestige is not abstract. Top students are now less interested in joining Paul Weiss. That is not a symbolic loss. It is the market telling the firm that its brand has been damaged by its own choices. The Times and Politico excerpts make the consequence plain. A firm that once styled itself as the gold standard for litigation now looks risky, compromised, and politically malleable. That should not be surprising. Reputation in elite legal circles depends on the belief that a firm will fight when the fight is necessary. Paul Weiss advertised independence and then demonstrated pliability. The market noticed. What this story actually shows, this is not just a story about one law firm under pressure. It is a study in how authoritarian power travels through institutional cowardice. Trump did not need to destroy every target. He needed enough high-status bodies to bend early, publicly, and expensively. Once they did, the lesson was sent downstream. Compliance is cheaper than principle. The deeper pattern is that elite institutions often mistake self-preservation for wisdom. They tell themselves they are buying time, preserving influence, or staying above politics. In practice, they are often financing the very forces that will later come for them. Paul Weiss did not merely accommodate Trump. It helped normalize the idea that a powerful enough bully can invoice institutions for the privilege of being left alone. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Clara, thanks for listening.